Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Pijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya as told to the Shelter Future His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ventrad srimadbhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. So, fourth canto, creation of the fourth order, chapter 22. Priti Maharaj is meeting with the four Kumars, or with the Kumars, chapter 35. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tatapi moksha evarta atyanti katta yeshyate traivargyo tarato dityam Yanta Baya Samyitaha. Tapi moksha evartha Atyanti kata yeshyate Traivargyorto nyato nityam Krityanta vayasamyitaha Tatapi moksha evarta Atyanti kata yeshyate Traivargyorto yuto nityam Krityanta vayasamyitaha Okay. All right. Tatra. There. Api. Also. Moksha. Liberation. Eva. Certainly. Arte. For the matter of. Atyantikataya. Most important. Ishyate. Taken in that way. Traivargyaha. The three others. Namely religion, economic development, and sense gratification. Artaha. Interest. Yataha. Wherefrom. Nityam. Regularly. Krita anta. Death. Bhaya. Fear. Samyutaha. Attached. Out of the four principles, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, liberation has to be taken very seriously. The other three are subject to destruction by the stringent law of nature, death. Purport. Moksha, or liberation, has to be taken very seriously, even at the sacrifice of the other three items. As advised by Sutta Goswami in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, religious principles are not based on success in economic development. Because we are very attached to sense gratification, we go to God, to the temple or churches for some economic reasons. Then again, economic development does not mean sense gratification. Everything should be adjusted in such a way that we attain liberation. Therefore, in this verse, liberation, moksha, is stressed. The other three items are material and therefore subject to destruction. Even if somehow we accumulate a great bank balance in this life and possess many material things, everything will be finished with death. In Bhagavad Gita it is said that death is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who ultimately takes away everything acquired by the materialistic person. Foolishly, we do not care for this. Foolishly, we are not afraid of death, nor do we consider that death will take away everything acquired by the process of dharma, artha, and kama. By dharma or pious activities, we may be elevated to the heavenly planets, but this does not mean freedom from the clutches of birth, death, old age, and disease. The purport is that we can sacrifice our interests in Trivarga, religious principles, economic development, sense gratification, but we cannot sacrifice the cause of liberation. Regarding liberation, it is stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.9, Takta deham punarjan manaiti. Liberation means that after giving up this body, one does not have to accept another material body. To the impersonalist, liberation means merge into the existence of impersonal Brahman. But factually, this is not moksha. Because one has to again fall down into this material world from that impersonal position. One should therefore seek the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engage in His devotional service. That is real liberation. The conclusion is that we should not stress pious activities, economic development, and sense gratification, but should concern ourselves with approaching Lord Vishnu and His spiritual planets, of which the topmost is Goloka Vrindavan, where Lord Krishna lives. Therefore, this Krishna consciousness movement is the greatest gift for persons who are actually design liberation. Om Gyanatividandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshudhanmadatam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Kam Karivachalam Pangam Langay Degadim Yat Kripa Tamahan Vande Shri Gurun Diritanana Vanchakapadribhishcha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Out of the four principles, translation again, namely religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, liberation has to be taken very seriously. The other three are subject to destruction by the stringent law of nature, death. So the Bhagavatam is, it's a rewiring us in the sense that it's first of all informing us what is ultimately important and what should be taken seriously, and what is not important and what shouldn't be taken seriously. And it's not that people aren't taking things seriously. Everybody's actually taking many things seriously. Mainly this material existence being taken very seriously. Like people really invest themselves in this world, and everybody's taking something seriously. Some people, they take seriously smoking pot. They take it very seriously. It's almost like a religion. There's all these stores around here. Like I was driving yesterday, or anyway, someday and I drove past a store, and the store had a big sign, and it said bongs. So bong is it's a instrument used to smoke pot, right? But big sign, bongs. People take that seriously. That I'm going to make some money, and I'm going to go buy a bong, and I'm going to get stoned, and they have all different. People have collections of them, right? Different bongs, different pipes they use, right? But whatever the case is, there's a million things that people are taking seriously. People take Comic-Con very seriously. Comic-Con downtown, all the huge. People fly in from all over the world. They spend tons of money. They take it very seriously. But as we see that very few, they take liberation seriously, or they take Krishna consciousness seriously. Very few do that. So what's being advised here is that economic development means making money, sense gratification of the senses, and what one could gain from living a pious life. These are all, it says, the three others are subject to destruction by the stringent law of nature. The stringent law of nature, death. And therefore, what Bhagavatam is advising us to do is do not take them so seriously, but take liberation seriously. Means going back to Godhead, take that seriously. Take Krishna consciousness seriously. And why? Because all material things, they all end up in the same. They all end up the same. They don't last. That's just, everything doesn't last. Everything, say, under the sun, material, just doesn't last. These very bodies that people are very attached to, they don't last. The other bodies that people are attached to, namely their family members, that also doesn't last. So nothing really lasts. Just like yesterday, I had the privilege of going to a funeral / memorial service. And this person, she was, you'd say, close to our family. And, people were there, and her children were there. And it was sad because, of course, all funerals are sad, right? That's what it's all about. People are lamenting the loss of a loved one. It's sad. But it's sad because, the children were up there and they were saying how they missed their mother and glorifying their mother. She did this, she did that, she did so many things. And then, of course, they were crying. Some of them were crying. And I was thinking that, of course, these feelings are all natural and fine. And although from another angle of vision, you could see that these people are completely invested in this existence. They're taking it very seriously, as if this is all that exists. And really, you could say buying into it. Now, of course, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be crying, they shouldn't be sad, or anything like that. Although, like I said, these feelings are natural. Although, the life that they're taking so seriously, their material life, is completely temporary. And what about the spiritual life? What about spiritual life? And somebody made a comment about this woman who passed away. She passed away here in SanDiego. She actually drank herself to death with alcohol. And, her liver failed and all that. But the point that a lot of people were bringing up is that it didn't have to be like that. Means she didn't have to go so far, but she let herself go far. She gave up on life. She just let herself go. And my aunt brought up a point. She said, she was a good person, this person who passed away. She was a good person. She had a lot of good qualities, which you could say is true. She had a lot of good qualities. But she had this weakness, and she let the weakness overcome her. And unfortunately, that's the case with a lot of people. That a lot of people are actually good. They have a lot of good qualities. Even devotees, they have a lot of good qualities, but sometimes they let this weakness, whatever that weakness may be, overcome them, and completely, in some cases, completely destroy their lives. And so this was the case with this person. So it was sad. It is sad. So the Bhagavatam is saying that, okay, fine, we may engage in sense gratification, we may engage in economic development, we may engage in religiosity, we may engage in so many things, but take Krishna consciousness seriously. Takta deham punarjanma naiti mamiti sorjuna. So that's the Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vititatvatah tvakta deham pranarjanma naitimam iti sorjuna. So that Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita that one who understands the transcendental nature of my appearance, my activities, and truth, upon leaving this body, they don't take another body again, but they go to the spiritual world. That's what Krishna is saying, which is a little different than a lot of philosophies out there, and even you could say religious philosophies out there. That Krishna, the spiritual world is specifically designed or specifically there for people who love Krishna, like really love Krishna, like don't want anything else to do with anything besides Krishna, in service to Krishna. So this idea that anybody and everybody just kind of stumbles upon the kingdom of God, any fool and rascal, just stumbles upon the kingdom of God without any qualification, is rejected by the Bhagavatam, because it's saying here that one has to become adhikar, qualification. One has to have qualification. So, and this makes sense because, if one spends their whole life not loving God, why would they go to God? If it means they don't really love God, so why would they go? It doesn't make any sense. So therefore reincarnation, right? You get so many chances. So yes. So all these things, economic development, all these different things, they're all destroyed by time. And Srila Prabhupada here, there's a nice quote from Prabhupada here. It's a lecture, June 6, 1972 in Los Angeles. So Prabhupada says, we should be more serious than Maharaj Parikshit. More serious. So Maharaj Parikshit, he was, he heard the Bhagavatam. He had 7 days to live. He was so serious. He was like, you can't get more serious than him. He sat there on the bank of the Ganga, right? And he just focused his mind on hearing the message of the Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami. And he didn't eat, he didn't sleep, he didn't do anything. He just heard the Bhagavatam, 7 days. So focused. So Prabhupada says we should be more serious than him. Good luck, but that's what he says. Maharaj Parikshit had at least some time to live, 7 days. But we do not know whether we will live for 7 more minutes. Does anybody have a guarantee? Does anybody have a certificate that I will live for 7 more minutes? Nobody has one. But we do not know whether we live for 7 more minutes. At any moment, your heart can fail you. And there's so many cases, even young people, what to speak of those getting older. Even young people, like there was some devotee in Mayapur, super young, super healthy too. He was very athletic, and he was actually, he would take devotees and help them, train them in exercising and all that, get them fit. Young, healthy, and what happened? His heart just failed one day. Unbelievable. Shocking. You do not know. It may happen when you're going through the street, just like the 2 boys who were coming here. I don't know, Prabhupada's referring to somebody in a car accident or something. They did not know that they were going to be killed. Our life is so jeopardized that any moment I can die. That's a fact. So Parikshit Maharaj had the opportunity of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam for 7 days. But I do not know if I have the opportunity to read Srimad Bhagavatam for 7 minutes. So let me read it very seriously. That should be our attitude. Not that, Parikshit Maharaj was given 7 days notice. I have no such notice. I may live for 7 millions of years. That is our disease. He said 7. Yeah, 7 millions of years. 7 million years. So that is our disease. So So the idea is that Prabhupada's stressing here is that, we should be serious and try to become fully Krishna conscious in this life, and then go back to the spiritual world. And so much of us becoming Krishna conscious actually just, like I said, the Bhagavatam is rewiring us, how we think, how we feel, what we take as important, what we take as not important. It's completely, it's supposed to mold our consciousness in a completely different way than we're used to. And that's important, or else people may take to Krishna consciousness, but if they don't apply themselves to hearing the message of Bhagavatam, which hearing the message of Bhagavatam just doesn't mean like hearing the message and, it was a great lecture, it was a cool lecture, or whatever, it was a bad lecture, slept through the whole thing, or whatever. But it means that whoever's speaking the message of Bhagavatam, we try to listen and then apply what we've listened, what we heard. In other words, remember it later on, contemplate it, think how we could apply it into our lives. It's not just supposed to be like a entertainment channel or something. We have this wonderful camera here, right? And God knows who's watching. I keep on hearing more and more people that I wouldn't expect to be watching. Like some devotees in Canada told me they watch. So I don't really know who's watching. But anyways, it's like a channel, right? You put on your phone or your TV or whatever, and you tune in. It's like a little show, almost. But it's not supposed to be like maybe entertaining to whatever degree, whatever that means. But it's supposed to be go beyond that in the sense that applying what we've heard. So the Bhagavatam is meant to change us, and therefore one should very seriously read it and hear it and get absorbed in it. And specifically, there's a quote here from letter to Ayodhyapati. You know who that is? Yeah, Bhakti Bringa Govindaswami, B.B. Govindaswami, famous Kirtaniya, right? Travels all around, leads. Oh, it's a letter from Prabhupada to him. So, this is what Prabhupada... Oh, yeah? Ram? Okay. The Lord of Ayodhya. So, this is a letter written to Prabhupada's disciple. So he says, go on reading the books and have the correct perception, and Krishna will help you. Siddhanta baliya chitte na kara alasa iha. Iti Krishna lage chudra manasa. A sincere student should not neglect discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. So that's the problem, that always boils down to the same problem. If someone has an uncontrolled mind, then that is the main problem. That's the only enemy, like Prahlad Maharaj says, that's the only enemy. People may think there's so many enemies. Or even, we could even go so far to think, we could even go so far to say, Maya, the material energy. Yeah, Maya exists, but the problem with Maya is we may be attached to Maya. That's the real problem. It means for a pure devotee of Krishna, it doesn't bother them. Maya doesn't bother them. Just like Prabhupada, and he walked out at San Francisco, walked out on the street. There's a bunch of hippies and, a bunch of women and men, and I'm sure they weren't following the strict regulations of being, chaste women and, strict brahmacharis, right? It was the summer of love, and he's walking through, and you smell a bunch of marijuana smoke. And the Mukunda, at that time, not Goswami, Mukunda, he was walking with Prabhupada, and he felt bad because, Prabhupada had to walk through all this, and this is terrible. I have to bring my spiritual master through this scene, a bunch of Maya everywhere. And then Mukunda, he was just trying to kind of break the ice, and he said, oh, Prabhupada, nice night, isn't it? And Prabhupada said, yes. And Prabhupada wasn't being sarcastic. Prabhupada said, yes, it's beautiful, beautiful. Because he was seeing that, okay, all these people, whatever's going on is going on, but he saw this is Krishna, this is Krishna's energy, right? So it is beautiful. But, yeah, for somebody who's who's not close to that level or advanced in many degrees in Krishna consciousness, then it could be a challenge to them. Oh, I might get attracted and pull it off, to that. So the point, and why is it? It's the mind. The mind is being attracted. The senses, the mind and the senses, which sixth sense, right? It's being attracted. So what is it being stated here? That the discussions, the Bhagavatam, reading, hearing, meditating on these messages of the Bhagavatam, it says it strengthens the mind. So it's very important. Because without, we're supposed to be warriors, right, of Lord Chaitanya's army. And a warrior means they have to have a strong mind. If you're a warrior and you don't have a strong mind, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. Because why is that? For example, the commander-in-chief or the commanders-in-chief or the spiritual master or the representative of the spiritual master, they say, hey, move this way, go here, do this, do that, Means giving some direction on how you should move in your life. And you say, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do that. And kind of like, in other words, too mental. The mind's not strong enough to follow through with the orders. And then you may get, bulldozed over by the material energy. Just like one time I was distributing books with Brigapati Prabhu down here in Chula Vista. And he told me, he was visiting here, big book distributor, been distributing books for his whole life. Amazing. And so he told me and two other devotees, he said, okay, I'm going to go in, I'm going to go to the person at the register, and you go to all the people in the restaurant, and you try to give them a book. They're sitting there eating. And so, of course, I'm going to feel uncomfortable doing that because, that's my nature. People like eating. Sometimes people get really disturbed. Hey, man, get lost. I'm eating. It's a very important thing, right? So, of course, he goes in there and he's fired up. Commander-in-chief goes in there, goes up to the, passes out some books to these people, and I just freeze up, and that's why I'm never a good book distributor, but freeze up, and I don't do it. I don't follow his order, And he came out and he was upset with me, and he said, you should have followed what I said. Just go in there, and so it's due to not having a strong mind in that regard. But so in so many ways, if we don't have a strong mind, the mind will take us away to things, to paths, to desires, to aspirations, to ways of thinking that are just not Krishna conscious, right? So therefore, Prabhupada's saying here, focus on these discussions about Krishna, and they strengthen our mind. And then when we hear order from Prabhupada, when we hear order from our spiritual master, when we hear order from the books, when we hear something that's good, and we know it's good, we're not stupid, we know it's good. Because our mind is strong, we're able to go with it. That is like one of the most, you could say, one of the biggest blessings one could have in their life. If they're able to strengthen their mind to the degree that they're able just to go with good instructions. Practically, that's like, if one could do that, they're almost liberated, or they're close to liberation, getting closer. Because, these people, they come to the temple or something, and then they say, oh, well, their mind's pulling them so many places. Oh, I gotta go to the bar. I gotta go to the restaurant. Oh, I gotta go here. I gotta go there. I gotta so many places, and they just follow it. They don't have a strong mind. And then he says, you should always be alert and understanding the Shastric conclusions. That will help you. Otherwise, we can be misled by bogus philosophies. I am very pleased that you are studying the books. This will make you happy and successful. So, misled by bogus philosophies. And, we shouldn't think that Prabhupada's just talking. Prabhupada means he's writing a letter to a devotee. So, which this could also be seen as misled by misconceptions of the philosophy, which is important not to fall into. Like sometimes, as Dravida Prabhu, he's been giving lectures on Sri Upanishad in the morning, every Monday. And there's one verse that came up. You should learn the process of nescience, ignorance, and knowledge side by side. And he was making the point how some devotees, they misunderstand this. That, I need to engage in sinful activity, moral activity, so I could understand it. And then I could give it up. Right? Or else I won't understand. So, but that's not being, you could read about what is nescience, what is ignorance. You'd have to engage in it. Because engage in it is reflect on your previous life. Because it's degrading to engage in it. Why would you want to engage in something that's degrading, right? So some devotee and whatever, I'm not holding, some devotees, they take these instructions out of context, and then they just, I need to know what is ignorance, so I'm going to go, get this drug, get that drug, do this, do that, and then I'll know, right? And they'll take pictures of them, drinking this or smoking this or whatever. So, yes, this is, I'm learning here, right? Like it's something. And then maybe they'll claim, this is a balanced approach, right? This is me having a balanced approach. But it's just, okay, fine. You can't hit the mark. Okay, fine. But don't try to screw some weird, ideas out of the philosophy and try to justify it. As Prabhupada said in the Bhagavad Gita, he said, in a purport, he said, if one can't come to the mark, I'm paraphrasing here, then understandable, but as long as they do not resent the principle, they'll eventually be able to follow. It means if they continue trying, they'll be able to follow. But resent means not to try to screw something out and change the philosophy and all that. So that's important, not to be misled. And then what is being stated here: if we hear, if we read, if we try to study, apply our intelligence, then we won't be misled by these misconceptions. And he says, I'm very pleased that you are studying the books. This will make you happy and successful. So Prabhupada said, my spiritual master quotes Prabhupada saying that by book distribution, by distributing my books, it will, how does that go? By distributing my books, it will keep the devotees happy, right? Because preaching is, everybody loves preaching, right? How can you not love giving somebody a book? It's one of the best things. By preaching, by book distribution, it will keep the devotees happy. And he said, by reading the books, it will keep the devotees. Means they won't leave. So, both should be, the book distribution, we're happy preaching and so on, naturally. And then by reading them, it will keep us, because it will keep our mind strong. That's what's being stated. It will keep our mind strong. Our mind won't I don't know, maybe I should do this or do that, and go here, go there, and then the mind just takes us. But it will keep us strong. So when we're hearing about economic development, sense gratification, all these things, it's like, okay, fine, we're hearing about them, liberation and so on, and how we should be serious about developing a relationship with Krishna. we're able to do that by applying ourselves to the message of the Bhagavatam, and then over time we have that strength of mind. Okay, I'm going this direction. I'm not going that direction, right? Okay, Joy. What is it? Comment or question?
Previous verse, we had the idea that hedonistic activities are to be avoided because they're great obstructions to the realization of Dharma, Artha, and Kama and Moksha. And then this verse it says, above those, moksha is to be taken very seriously. But there seems to be kind of a, I don't want to say a contradiction, but kind of a change up a little bit. Because, all right, so I'm not practicing healing activity because I want to be regulated, in these things. There's some allowance.
License.
The karma is there, but it has to be regulated. And at last, liberation. But it's almost like they're contradictory, because if you're looking for liberation, then you want to decrease the karma and the artha. So they're not quite compatible. And then beyond that, you have at the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, second verse of the entire Bhagavatam, Dharma Parocha Dikhaitavota, that in this book, here in this Bhagavatam, would kick out all of this cheating religion. And one of those things, Prabhupada says in several places, I don't know if he says it right there in the purport, I think he does, that Sridhar Maharaj, original commentator, said that in one of those cheatings is the desire for liberation. And yet here it says that moksha has to be taken very seriously. So how do we reconcile these two seemingly contradictory instructions?
Okay. Well, definitely, there's different types of liberation, but we're not into the liberation of the impersonalists, which means merging into the existence of the effulgence, right, of Krishna. We're not into that. And there's different, you could have you have a similar form as Krishna, right? You could be in the same planet as Krishna, right? Different forms, liberation. But ultimately, Prabhupada would preach differently to different people, but of course the highest thing is not to care about one's liberation either, whatever the liberation may be. Because the highest thing is just to focus on Krishna and whatever Krishna wants. If Krishna wants me to stay in the material world for another billion lifetimes, and okay, that's fine. If Krishna wants me to go back to Godhead in this life, okay, fine, whatever Krishna wants. And there's not this, focusing on liberation. But sometimes Prabhupada would preach like this, birth, death, old age, disease, suffering, all these things that are going on. Just get out of here. It's a bad, break the contract, right, of the cycle of birth and death. It's not a good deal, right? Everybody wants a good deal. It's not a good deal. It's not a good plan. Not a good coverage plan. He wouldn't say that. I'm saying that, but so he would say, just go back to Godhead. And he would encourage people to become liberated, focus on that. And you could say that's a good impetus for people, right? No one wants to suffer. So it's a good impetus, okay. But then you could say on the most advanced level, then what is that? Janmani janmani ishvare bababtad bhakti rahoit ki tvai. Is it? Ai nanda tanuja kinkadam patitamam vishme bhava? No. Oh. Nadanam najanam najanam nasunadim kavatam vajagadisha kame. Mama janmani janmani ishvare bababtad bhakti rahoit ki tvai. So wealth, women, followers, right? Fruits of mundane piety, as Dravida Prabhu's. Liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Please let me serve you now, purely now, and in each future birth. So he's saying that this is hinting at or mentioning clearly that, Lord Chaitanya, he's teaching us how to pray. Not that we're salvationists, ultimately. Vaishnavas aren't salvationists. Some people, they have this idea, salvation. I need to get free right? I need to go to heaven. I need to go to God, right? Salvation. I need to be freed from my sins. But ultimately, Vaishnavas are thinking, Krishna. I'm going to please Krishna. I'm going to please Krishna. Right? Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. What does Krishna want? Krishna wants me to try to, like I read this really nice quote. Where did I read it somewhere. I'm trying to. I'm not 70. I should remember where I read it. Yeah. So I read this quote. It's from a Vaishnava book. And it said that a devotee, Krishna, one of Krishna's, you could say, most or main or strongest desires is to try to get the conditioned souls back, right, to his lotus feet, to Krishna, to him. So it's saying that a devotee understanding this, that this is one of Krishna's, we could say, most strong desires, they try to fulfill that desire, and then they please Krishna in that way. And actually, it's the most pleasing. Now I know, I read this. My spiritual master, he wrote an article about it. Bhavananda, name of a disciple of Prabhupada, and he asked when he got initiated, "Oh Prabhupada, Bhavananda, what is that?" Because Bhava means the material world, and Ananda means bliss. So he said, the bliss of the material world? Like, well, how does that make sense? What's the bliss of the material world? He's the servant of the bliss of the material world. So Prabhupada explained that preaching is the bliss of the material world, because you can't do it in the spiritual world. People are already. You can't say, "Oh, Prabhu, you're not your body," right? Say it, because they are their body, right? They're their spiritual body. So, right, in this world, we're not our body. So yeah, he was making the point that that's one of Krishna's main desires. So if we fulfill that desire, then we please Krishna very much. So the point is that devotees focus on Krishna's desires and not liberation. But it can be said sometimes in the Bhagavatam and Prabhupada about go for it, liberation. So yes.
I think throughout the Bhagavatam, you read this. It just came to mind in the last couple of minutes was Dhruva.
Yeah.
How Dhruva started out his mission. There was actually nothing transcendental about it.
Yes.
He was very
angry.
upset. He was just a little child. He was insulted by his father, and he heard from his mother, as Prabhupada tells it, and as actually his stepmother told him, you have to get God's mercy, and then his mother says, yes, she's right. And then, as Prabhupada says, so where do I go? And she said, well, I've heard this great sages go to the forest. And so he went completely, okay, I'm going to go to God and ask him to, give me the kingdom back or whatever, So where's the transcendental? But Narada Muni, being the preacher that he was, he harnessed that strong desire.
Yeah.
And gave him instructions. Okay, whatever you say, Maharaj. All right, so you do this, you bathe this, you chant this, you do these austerities, and you'll get your kingdom back. So he started out with the material desire and ended up completely free of material desire and just ecstatic in Krishna consciousness, very advanced. So that's a universal means of preaching, and it goes for the presentation of mukti also, because Bhagavatam is beyond that, right at the beginning, Tarmak Projita Kaitavod. But that's a very important impetus for taking up spiritual life. And in the course of doing it, you lose your interest in bhakti, in mukti, and you become interested in pleasing Krishna. And it even goes for the idea of enjoyment. I mean, how many times do you hear about how Krishna's enjoying so much in the spiritual world with his cowherd boys and friends? I want to join. I want to go back to God. I. It's kind of a. But then, as you practice devotional service, you realize that to really enjoy, you have to forget all about your own enjoyment. Whatever Krishna wants. Simply being focused on what the spiritual master wants, what Krishna wants, how can I serve the devotees, how can I serve. And then you find yourself in bliss, involuntarily. That's explained very nicely in the 4th chapter of the Adi Lila, which is a really important chapter. And so that means of attracting people, even probably, the Sunday feast, let's get people to come in, and get prasadam and cook it really nicely. It's important. It's it's purifying. People come for that, and in the environment they pick up other things. Some people just come for that. They've been doing it for years. But it's all auspicious. So that principle is there, and the same thing is there with the attraction of mukti. And Krishna says, Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi. But ultimately, give up all of that and just surrender to me.
Yeah, I think the Vaishnavas are a little tricky, actually. Like Prabhupada said one time, is a Vaishnav crooked or is he straightforward? And the devotee said, oh, he's straightforward, Prabhupada said. And Prabhupada, no, he's crooked. He said, I told all of you, just chant Hare Krishna, and then actually, because you don't tell people in the beginning, but actually the idea is you surrender your whole life to Krishna. So, okay.
Haribol, thank you for a wonderful sermon, I guess. I just want to update you. My friend is doing real well. We prayed for him. So thank you. And actually, he's going to go to Spain now for a week. So he's Spain. He's going to Madrid. So, I do believe in the power of prayer. So, it was very nice. And the second thing I want to point out, I don't know if this is the first time I've seen this. When I came in, there were actually 2 homeless people sleeping in the courtyard. And there's, the friend of the poor and all that. I do get it. But, they do tend to leave things behind. They even do bathrooms. And it's right in the courtyard inside right there. So,
in the courtyard. You're talking about the little place.
yeah. So I don't know if it's okay with you or not, but
It's not really okay. I
because it'll multiply, that's all, And,
we're going to try to put a gate up.
and I'm compassionate, truly compassionate. I feel uncomfortable telling you this, but it's the first time I've seen this. But anyway, thank you again.
I've seen it before.
Haribol.
We've had people sneak into the temple.
Oh, you have?
All right.
Haribo. So many times you're making the point of controlling the mind, and then you give the example of yourself on book distribution with Bhagavati Prabhu. And we can acknowledge that struggle, that even the most fixed up devotees who distribute books go through that. And so a lot of the times I'm asking because new people come out, or even old people who distribute books, and a lot of it is a mental game.
Mm-hmm.
And, because there have been many cases that it is not within their karma, it's not within their nature that they can't distribute books.
Mm.
But then sometimes it is, but then it's like their mind.
Yeah.
And so it's like, to me, it's like they already quit before even trying.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people, it's like, dude, you just killed it, a few days ago. You rocked it, you out there, you distributed so many books, met so many people, made so many connections. And then the next day you're like morose, you're depressed, you're like struggling to even get in the car. And so I think a lot of it is we are what we believe. You in the example you gave, you said that you're saying, I'm not really a book distributor, and to meet these people in the restaurant, and since you identify with those thoughts, that's what you became.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times I think we shouldn't sell ourselves short. Because there's that aspect that it may not be within our nature. That would be for some people. But I would even say that it is within many people's capacity. I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Like they distribute books. It's just that they just need to apply themselves and go beyond the mind, beyond those thoughts.
Yeah. All right, last comment before I get pulled off the stage.
Hare Krishna.
It's on.
You mentioned that a sincere student should not neglect the knowledge given. And I remember Javirapa would say one time in one class that what is knowledge without renunciation?
What is that?
What is knowledge without renunciation? Meaning that if you have all the knowledge, but you don't apply it. Is that right? Is that what it meant?
It was the other way around.
Oh, it was.
Renunciation without knowledge.
What is it?
It can't be renunciation, real genuine renunciation.
Oh, okay. So I confused that. Okay. So, all right. So, sorry. Okay. No comments then.
All right, Jai. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.